Hey, friends, welcome to episode 495 of the My 123 Cents podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Huntsberger, and flying solo this week and possibly next week. The last week has been completely insane to kind of give you a peek behind the curtain into my real world, my personal life. Uh, 3 of the 5 nights this past week, I worked late. I work at a community college in Southern Illinois, and it's graduation week, or it was graduation week, and it was also we did several pinning ceremonies, and I attended 2 of the 3 that we had of those. And then the night that I didn't go to that, there was severe weather in the area, and I had another meeting to go to. So it's just been insane. Then Saturday, my wife and I went to St. Louis to move our oldest son to his new apartment. And so that took me out of the fold completely on Saturday. I am recording this Sunday afternoon. It is Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day. I don't know. I'd be interested. Are there any women, any females that listen and or watch the My 123 Cents podcast? I know my own wife does not. So I'd be curious if you are a woman, don't have to be a mom, but if you are a female, comment in the comment section. Let me know. I'm just curious. I think most of the demographic for My 123 Cents, because it is wrestling and not cast stereotypes, but that it is what it is. It's typically men out there listening. Jamie Woodworth might be listening. I don't know if she listens every week, but Jamie, if you are, shout out to you and thank you for that. But yeah, I'm kind of curious now. I'm interested in knowing. So happy Mother's Day, though, to those who did celebrate over the weekend, and hopefully it was a great weekend for you. The weather here in Southern Illinois was outstanding. Next week is even as busy as this past week has been, but more on the personal side of things, not work related. I do have some work related things going on this upcoming week, but Saturday on May 18th, my daughter graduates from high school. And then the next day on Sunday, we're having her graduation party. And I typically record the podcast on the weekend, unless I have a guest, and we can sometimes knock it out during the week. And that this upcoming week, I will be doing that because we are going to have out of town guests staying here at the house, staying here in this very studio that I am in right now. So I will knock something out, whether it's with me, myself, or still trying to get Vinny Barry booked and a solid time for him. And so we will definitely, I have gone 9.5 years every Monday. There has been, I think when we first started the podcast, it might have been on Tuesdays, but I digress. Every week, without fail, there has been a new episode of the podcast, and we are on episode 495. And I think I said that at the beginning. If I didn't, here's a reminder. 5 weeks away from big episode 500. Looking forward to that, and not exactly still sure what I'm going to do, but we're going to have some fun with it for sure. I want to remind you also to check out the YouTube channel. I've been playing around with some ideas to do some longer form videos on YouTube as well as TikTok, while TikTok is still around. And YouTube is kind of the place that I want people to head to if YouTube does decide, or I'm sorry, if TikTok decides to fold up and go away. Here in the United States, at least. So I'm at Kevin Huntsberger on YouTube or on TikTok, and I am, of course, at My 123 Cents on YouTube. If you are watching this podcast on YouTube, I appreciate it. Be sure to leave a review and subscribe, and let me know what kind of content you would like to see more of here on My 123 Cents. And so, without any further ado, I'm going to get to this week's topic. I actually had a couple of different ideas going into this solo. I have 2 brand new wrestling themed beers, but then I discovered that this week, as I am recording this show drops on the 18th. I'm sorry, on Monday the 13th. It is also the start of American Craft Beer Week, and I had some friends that went to Michigan recently that brought back 11 different craft beers. I have had one of them. My dad found the Austin 316 IPA. I've had all 3 of Stone Cold Steve Austin's other beers, the lager, the regular IPA, and the double IPA. And so now thanks to my dad going to Texas to visit my brother, he was able to find the newest IPA that dropped a couple months ago. But I finally have it. So this upcoming week, I'm going to be doing those beer reviews. And a friend of mine had picked me up something very recently too that is wrestling related. So I'll have a couple of wrestling under the influences. I plan to do a beer review every night this upcoming week, which means I'll probably be drinking some of those in success, or one after the other consecutively, and putting them in the can, pun intended, for the rest of the week. So be sure to check out TikTok and the My123 Cents Instagram page, Facebook, and of course YouTube. But if you're watching on YouTube, you're already here. So cheers and welcome aboard. So anyway, I had put it out a while back about doing episodes of the podcast where it's make me choose, and it actually came from I saw a funny Simpsons meme, and it was make me choose between, and then it was two different things. And I've done a handful of them. I think women's. I don't think I've done women's wrestlers yet. That is on the list of ones to do. But I've done tag teams, and I have done a couple of other ones, and they're escaping me at the moment. But I decided to do today, make me choose between two tag team partners. And there's a reason behind that. And that is because my tag team partner here on the podcast, he is a frequent co-host on the podcast, is Chad Smart. And today, as you are listening and watching, if you are on the day that it drops on Monday, May 30th, I'm sorry, May 13th, Jesus, I can't speak today. Today is Chad's 50th birthday, and I just wanted to do a shout out. I know he doesn't like these kinds of things, but 50 is a big deal. I can't wait till I'm 50 in a couple of years, but he knows the story, and everybody else probably does too. But anyway, Chad, happy birthday. Thanks for being such a great friend. 20 plus years now of friendship, and 10 WrestleManias later, we still speak to each other on a very regular basis. We've had a long ongoing Snapchat streak. And even though he moved from the area, gosh, 17 years ago now, I think it's been, we've kept in touch and maintained that friendship, which is not something that I am very good at. So that is a testament to what he has put into our friendship. And again, I thank him for that. Thank him for being a contributor to My123 Cents, not only as a podcast co-host, but also many of the prizes that we give here on the My123 Cents podcast and Facebook page have been things that he has donated, things that he has picked up, or things that he has collected through the years and has decided to donate to the cause. He's always been a big supporter of the My123 Cents wrestling figure drive, which is technically actively going on, but not officially up and running. But I'm always taking donations and whatnot, and being able to give a few here and there to those in need before Christmas even arrives has been something that we have been able to do this year as well, thanks to folks that are generous and making donations. So again, I appreciate all the kindness. So I decided this week, I kind of set this up with Chad, and it's make me choose between two tag team partners because, like I said, I do consider Chad my podcasting tag team partner and my WrestleMania travel partner for sure. So we are going to get right into it without any further ado. And I'll start with Chad's. He threw out some, and I know he was being, Chad with his dry wit and sense of humor. Razor and Akon. I think I'm saying those right. It's the Authors of Pain, and I'm not sure if they go by something else now that they're back in WWE. And he did these because he knows I don't know the difference between any of these tag teams. But Randy and Bill Mulkey, I do know, and I think it was Bill Mulkey who went to the second round of our Enhancement Talent Madness tournament earlier this year in March. So. The Mulkey brothers were a staple on Jim Crockett Promotions, on the TBS shows, the 605 shows. So I guess I'll go with Bill on that one. The Ding Dongs, 1 or 2. The Conquistadors, got to go with, or actually Jason Skull threw that one in. The Conquistadors and the Shadows. Conquistador dos, was always my favorite. But I did like when WWE would dust off the Conquistadors and bring them back, and then usually be unmasked, as we saw it as Edge and Christian before. I think the Hardys may have done it one time, and then of course Kurt Angle donned the Conquistador costume as well. So. Of those, I would say Edge was my favorite of the Conquistadors, but all kidding aside, uh, this was a fun topic. He also said Matt and Nicholas, or Matthew or Nicholas, of the Young Bucks, the Jacksons, there. And I jokingly responded back to him on Twitter that Nicholas's partner was Braun Strowman, not Matthew. So, again, a little AEW humor between Chad and I. And again, I know there's a lot of tribalism in wrestling, and I'm not going to crap on AEW or its fan base or Tony Khan or any of that. I think that you should watch and enjoy what you watch and enjoy. Edge said it best, or Adam Copeland said it best recently in an interview with Chris Van Vliet about the tribalism and growing up. And Edge and I are the same age, and there was so much out there to watch. Where I grew up, and I've talked about it before, there was WWF, there was World Class, there was, JCP, there was the AWA, there was Mid South, there was Central States. I had 6 or 7 different promotions that I was watching as a kid, from roughly age 10 to probably 13 or 14. So there was a big span there where I was watching it all and enjoying it all and rooting for it all and not hoping that anyone failed. I did not want Vince McMahon to fail. I did not want Bill Watts to fail. I didn't want Fritz von Erich to fail or Vern Gagne. I supported them all. And I think that with social media, we have all become more brazen in our opinions. And I do know that there are some that will point out that certain owners or executives with other companies have kind of fired shots, and that's kind of what contributed to this. And I am in that camp as well. But I think as fans, we can do better, and maybe set the tone and the example for the executives out there who are kind of spreading some of this and fanning the flames of the tribalism that currently exists. Okay, I'm done with that part of it. I will get back on focus here, and let's talk about Hawk and Animal, the Road Warriors, the Legion of Doom in the WWE, of course. But I can remember watching Hawk and Animal in those early days in the AWA. They were the AWA Tag Team Champions. I remember when they beat Baron Van Raschke and Crusher. I think that was the team they beat. And then they unexpectedly lost them to a team of Steven Regal, not that Steven Regal. No, this was Mr. Electricity Steven Regal and gorgeous Jimmy Garvin. What an obnoxious duo to beat the Road Warriors, who were like this invincible tag team. But of course, they had outside interference from the Freebirds. And I remember them going then and wrestling in Jim Crockett Promotions and eventually the WWF, and then bouncing back and forth and wrestling all over the world. The Road Warriors were one of those teams, I liked them, but I was not a huge Road Warriors fan. But I did like them. I did respect what they did. I met Animal several years ago at an event at IWA Productions in Mount Vernon, Illinois. Gosh, this was probably back in 2018 or 2019. So he was a nice guy, and I was glad I got the opportunity to meet him before he passed away. And I would say if I had to pick between he and Hawk, I would choose Animal. I thought that Animal, as a kid, to me, he was just, even though Hawk had the voice and had the bigger build and bigger physique, Animal was definitely the powerhouse of the team. And I did like Animal's mohawk better. I liked his tattoos better as well. But yeah, the Road Warriors, a great tag team. Their finish was something that was just simply amazing. And it, now as an adult, though, it makes me nervous to see that with the guy flipping over the shoulders, the Doomsday Device, with the potential of landing on your head as you're flipping over. But, it ain't ballet, as they say. But yeah, Road Warriors, definitely one of the all-time great tag teams, and definitely going to go with Animal there. Dan Corley and both Ken Johnson threw out the New Age Outlaws, who we, of course, know as the Road Dogg Jesse James and Badass Billy Gunn, or Mr. Ass Um, I liked this tag team. I didn't at first. And speaking of the Road Warriors, this was another one of those makeshift tag teams that defeated the Road Warriors or the Legion of Doom for tag team gold. This was back in 1997 when the New Age Outlaws, newly formed tag team, came together and beat the Legion of Doom for the tag team titles. And again, I thought this was a makeshift team. It's not going anywhere. And they have new in their name. So you had the New Rockers and the new foundation, and anytime you throw new in front of a team, the New Midnight Express, it just doesn't work. But the New Age Outlaws worked, and I know it wasn't really a new version of an old tag team. I'm trying to be funny here, but yeah, I liked the New Age Outlaws a lot. When they got the rub and ended up getting added to DX, I thought that was even better for them, and they were big parts of the Attitude Era. But I have to give it to Billy Gunn, who is still at age 60 or 61 at this point, getting in there and wrestling and looking great. He is in phenomenal shape, probably better shape now than he was in those early days as the Smoking Guns or even with DX. But he has been one that is constantly taking care of himself and has been a stalwart in not just the WWE, but in AEW. I know he was part of TNA for a bit as well. And that's not to diminish the Road Dogg. I like the Road Dogg. He has probably more charisma than Billy Gunn, but I think Billy Gunn, when I think of tag team wrestling, there are 4 or 5 guys that I put in a class of like, this is a perpetual tag team wrestler. And that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing by any means. That they could get kind of shoehorned in with anyone and make it work. And Billy Gunn is one of those guys. And that's also why I pick him. And I met Billy Gunn and actually wrestled him on live TV as we were playing a WWF video game. Again, Chad Smart running the desk as we were doing that. So that was a lot of fun. And so Billy Gunn is my pick for who is the best member of the New Age Outlaws. Let's see. Johnny Mize asks Eddie Guerrero or Rey Mysterio. This is a tough one. This was probably the toughest of the ones asked because I think at the time when they were working together and wrestling, and they were tag team partners at times, and then they were enemies at times. Of course, wrestling for the custody of Dominic. I think they were WWE Tag Team Champions when they wrestled each other at WrestleMania 21, which would have ultimately ended up being Eddie's last WrestleMania. And fact check me on that. I think they were tag team champions, and I think they opened the show. I'm going off of memory here, but. A phenomenal tag team. I love Rey Mysterio. I love the fact that he has been around for as long as he has and is still getting in there and still, he's kind of like Billy Gunn and the fact that he is just this constantly evolving and getting in there and staying, keeping up with this new generation and sharing that knowledge and sharing that experience with the new generation of superstars and of wrestlers. So Eddie Guerrero, I think, is a case of gone way, way, way too soon. He is someone that I came to respect and grow more admiration for after he passed away, unfortunately. And I would love to see what he would be still doing because I think he'd still be involved in the business. I don't know if he would still be in the ring wrestling, but he would certainly, I think, still have some sort of role, whether it's as a trainer or a manager or some kind of presence in wrestling. And I think just based on that unknown, if I look at it in the capsule of when it was happening, I would definitely have gone with Eddie Guerrero. But so much time has passed since Eddie's passing. You can't deny what Rey Mysterio has done. And it's hard. It's a toss-up. Like I said, this was the toughest one for me to make a choice and pick between. So, Johnny, you win the prize for toughest call. I'm going to go with Eddie, though. I just think that the legend of Eddie, and maybe that kind of contributes to part of this, the nostalgia and the desire, the wish, the hope that he was still with us. And again, not to take anything away from Rey Mysterio. Both amazing, phenomenal singles talents and an amazing and talented tag team. And then they eventually went on and had their own other partners, or maybe even leading up to this. It was Rey and Edge, and it was Eddie and Chavo. So again, two utility players that could make things work. Ken had another one, a couple more actually. Bret and Owen Hart. Uh, I think going back, I like Bret and Owen Hart as a tag team, and I don't think they teamed up very often as the Hart Foundation when the Hart Foundation kind of reformed in 1997. I know they teamed up very briefly in '93 and '94 before Owen turned on Bret. And I feel like back then, at that point, they weren't so. Bret was obviously the superior brother, in my opinion, at that time, and I would have picked Bret. But by '97, when they were teaming up in the Hart Foundation, and Owen had an Intercontinental title run under his belt, and he um, had won King of the Ring, and he had that heel run, and teaming with Bret, I think that they were both uh, phenomenal. And Bret, obviously still being the world champion and having, that many have, labeled him that best technical wrestler mantra and whatnot. And Owen, like Eddie, another one that was taken from us way, way, way too soon. Um, and I think that uh, if I'm picking favorite versus who was better, I mean, who was better? I would go with Bret. But if I'm picking favorites, I would go with Owen. I liked Owen Hart a lot. I liked him. Uh, I liked his heel run in '94, '95, '96. And I even liked it when he kind of came back after the screw job as a face and took on and challenged DX and was wrestling Triple H pretty regularly. I enjoyed that version of Owen as well. So yeah, I think that Owen did a better job of evolving the character and changing and doing that kind of thing than say Bret did. And that some people may disagree with that, and that's fine. That's why this podcast is here, is to air opinions. There are a lot of people who make lots of money voicing their opinions on pro wrestling and get a lot of people riled up about it in the process. So I'm not looking to get anyone riled up, but I am looking to have a conversation. And if you disagree or if you agree, let me know. And we'll leave it at that. Ken, let's see. Ken also threw out the Nasty Boys, Brian Knobbs, Jerry Sags. The Nasty Boys, I can remember reading about them in the aftermags before they went to uh, WCW first and then jumped to the WWF and then went back to WCW. Um, I think that's how it worked. Or did they come from the AWA to the WWF? I don't remember now. Um, they may have gone to the AWA, then WWF, and then WCW. I don't remember. It's not important. Uh, I would say, you know, the Nasty Boys for me was a tag team that they were different. I did enjoy the fact that they were different, and I liked the pit stop that they did where they would take their opponent in the WWF and put their opponent's face in their armpit. Um, I don't know that they, like other teams and other wrestlers, evolved as much as maybe they could have or should have. They had that '80s look with the t-shirts with the spray paint on them and the mullet haircuts with the mohawk, faux hawk kind of things going on. So from that perspective, they were fine for a bit, and I just personally felt like after a while it got a little played out. I guess I don't know. Not in a bad way, not in a negative way. Um, but yeah, I would probably go with Brian Knobbs. Just I think he was the more notable of the two, more memorable of the two, and I think after some recent, or in recent years, has been a little bit more outspoken and vocal in the world of professional wrestling. Ken also has on here, and I just wrote these down in quick shorthand and just put initials, and now I'm wishing I would have spelled it out. Let's see. He had the New Age Outlaws, which we talked about, Bret and Owen Hart, the Nasty Boys, and then I just wrote HB. I know that's not the Headbangers. Let's see. He had Ken. I'm sorry, I do not remember who HB is, and it's not coming to me. So I guess we're gonna have to skip that one, and I apologize. Um, unless, and I know this makes for bad radio, or bad audio and bad video, but this was on Twitter, and I can pull up my Twitter very quickly here, and I'll keep talking as I'm doing it so we don't seemingly miss a beat throughout. But let's see here. Ken Johnson, who has been a longtime supporter too of this brand, and I do appreciate that and thank him. Hollywood Blondes, God, how could I forget that? You know, the Hollywood Blondes, and there are obviously a few different incarnations, and I know Ken is talking about. I'm assuming I should say that Ken is talking about the Brian Pillman and Steve Austin version of Hollywood Blondes. And I would have to, Brian Pillman is one of those guys too. I thought I enjoyed him as a babyface in the early days, and my grand dog just knocked the door open and is seemingly going to come in here. You're going to come in here? And so I would have to go, uh, with Brian when he was in those early days and in the early stages of his career. I enjoyed uh, the work that he was doing then, and then he eventually turns heel and then forms this union with Steve Austin. This is stunning Steve Austin. This is long before Stone Cold. And again, this is a hard choice. Brian Pillman, another one of those taken from us way too soon. And I think looking back at that era and in that time capsule of the early to mid '90s, Brian was obviously the team leader there. He was the team captain. He was the more experienced of the two, and probably at that time. I don't think he was necessarily the better wrestler. I think Steve Austin was a great technician before his injuries, where he became more of a brawling style, brawling type of wrestler. But, um, you know, I also always enjoyed Stunning Steve Austin. Remember reading about him more in the USWA days. By then, we were not getting that on our cable system and wasn't able to watch it. So I'm going to go with in that case. Just based on that time capsule and that time period, I'm going to go with Brian Pillman as my favorite. I think Steve Austin was the better wrestler of the two, but I think that Brian Pillman was my favorite. But then eventually, obviously, as Steve Austin evolves, goes to the WWF and becomes Stone Cold. I mean, he's my 1A and 1B with Ric Flair. So definitely some props to him. And before we wrap up this week's episode, I'm going to go with Greg Mahachko's question. And I knew someone was going to ask, and I figured it would be him. My choice between Heath Hatton or Kevin Huntsberger, of course. The Baby Oil Express, the short-lived tag team in Stride Pro Wrestling, which 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago this summer, Tyler or Heath Hatton and I won the tag team titles. And then 2 years ago, this month, we ended up having a match between each other. So if you go by the match results, you got to pick me. But obviously, I am picking Tyler Heath Hatton. He gave me some amazing and great and fun opportunities that I am grateful for and thankful for and very appreciative of. And, if you go back and look at that match, which is on YouTube, it's just brutal when he and I beat Jay Spade and Tony Flood for the tag team titles. But definitely Heath Hatton all the way, all day. My favorite indie wrestler of all time, and a great friend, someone that I appreciate and respect and have a lot for, and as well. So, and he recently celebrated a birthday, and next year he hits a milestone. So we'll do some appropriate celebrating, I'm sure, around that time as well. But that is it for this week's episode. I want to thank everyone who contributed and asked or threw out a Make Me Choose tag team. And we'll be doing this again soon. I kind of hinted at the women, and maybe I'll have someone on here to do that episode with. But I want to thank you all again for listening and or watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and get updates, and go back and watch some of the YouTube videos in the archives. You don't have to watch the full-length podcast. Go back and watch some of those shorter 3-4 minute long videos, the shorts, which are 60 seconds or less on all of those. Go back and watch some of those and leave some reviews, leave some comments, leave some thoughts. It helps with the algorithm, and it helps to get the word out about my 1, 2, 3 cents. Friends, thank you again. Have a great week, and we will talk again soon.